Well, this is Long Haul Area with Big Blue. We are in Dallas, Texas, and we are loaded up. We just got our paperwork and everything else. It is 1:27 p.m. Temperature gauge says 105. I don't think it's that hot though. Probably high to mid 90s, something like that. Big Blue's temperature gauge says 105. We are all loaded up. We have 43,689 pounds. And basically what it is cases of syrup. It's the stuff that they put in machines when you go into like restaurants and stuff like that. And it draws out syrup and puts carbonated water with it and stuff. This is the syrup. It's cherry Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, Fanta and Orange. It's all different things. And then on the back of the trailer, I saw 2 cases of Peak iced tea. I don't know what that's about. Just 2 little separate boxes of just Peak iced tea. I don't know if it's something new and they're trying to put it out there. But we are all loaded up on our way. So I'm gonna have to pull up to the gate over here and they will come out and seal it. So let's get it moving. Alrighty, we are all checked out. Made our way through customs here at Coca-Cola. It's telling me to turn right. I came from the left. I don't know why it told me to come that way. It's taking me around in a circle going right back to the road that it came off of. Don't know. We're pretty heavy. We're gonna have to get ourselves to a scale. They're going a silhouette of an airplane. I'm right at the end of the airport. They've been just flying over all the time. And you guys seem to like my stories, so you know what? I got a story about Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. That's right. What does a Wisconsin boy have a story about that airport about? I've been there. I was 15 years old, and my sister was living in Vacaville, California, and her husband was doing construction, but they were living in this really big, massive apartment buildings, and I'm going right back over to the road I just came off of. For some reason, it's taking me around this loop. And she was hired in there, and they brought her in, and they basically wanted to go in. It was a very bad part of the town, and a lot of bad stuff going on. But they hired her in, and they wanted her to go through, clean the place out, evict everybody that's not, that's breaking all the rules, not paying rent, blah, blah, blah. Get them out of there, then go through the rental unit, completely redo it, remodel the whole thing. And then we would do it like courtyards, and we'd kind of go. She would go through each courtyard, And then once she got all that done, and she would do all this landscaping, put irrigation in for new lawns and all this stuff, fix the whole place up, and then she'd turn around and rent that little courtyard out. And she just kept going down these courtyards in this building doing all this. Well, she did this. Oh, that was an Amazon there. I went by. She did one side and went through it and fixed it all up, and the people were all happy with her. So I showed up, and me and my parents, we went out there on a vacation. All my other brothers, they were all older. My next older brother, he had just graduated. He was off working. He was actually driving truck for JB Hunt. And we did this family trip. And I've noticed that, I don't know if you saw that yard guy there. I've noticed a couple other yard guys coming in here. They're all wearing masks, like handkerchiefs over their face. I guess because of that air pollution thing. But, yeah, this is exactly, if I would have just turned left, I would have came right out of here. Oh, Aaron, you're so stupid sometimes. But we went out there, it was just my parents and myself. We went out for a vacation, and we went out for, I think, 2 weeks or something like that, just to visit and everything else. And we went out there and hung out with them, and while we were there, we actually helped her with some of the stuff and remodeling and stuff like this. And her husband at the time was a carpenter. He worked on the construction company there. And, you know, at nights he would work there in the places and everything else. Well, we came out and we were there for 2 weeks, and she asked me, she says, what are you doing for the rest of the summer? I said, nothing, the usual, hang out at the lake, water ski all day. And I was 15 years old. And she said, would you like to stay? Make some money. I was like, how much money? And she had talked to her boss and said, hey, I got this younger brother. He's really handy and stuff, and he can, we're gonna wait before we make this here turn. I don't want to put my trailer down in that ditch. I can see, and look at this car. I just gotta be in that lane. I can't be in the other lane. Goes to the same spot, but I gotta be in that lane. There we go. So she had talked to her boss, and her boss was willing to pay me if I was willing to put in between 30 and 40 hours a week working on this stuff. He was willing to pay me $1,000 a week. I was 15 years old. And I was like, yeah. And we were actually, me and my parents, when we went out there, one of the apartments was used as her office. And it had a couple bedrooms in it. She just used the front area as the office part. So that's where we stayed. And she's like, you can just have that apartment. So I was 15 years old, $1,000 a week, getting paid. And out there in Vacaville, California, my parents left me there. Yeah, buddy, that was cool. So I was out there and I was working, and I was doing all the stuff and everything else, and I'd work, but I kind of ran her out of work. So then I said, well, you know what, I'm gonna get a part-time job just to make extra money, because I'm just sitting here doing nothing. So I went and got a job at Taco Bell, and I worked nights at Taco Bell. And I would start at like 6 at night and work till like 2 in the morning or something like this. And I worked at Taco Bell. I did that. And we did a whole bunch of things, and we got a couple of courtyards done, and I stayed out there for almost the whole summer. And we actually, I just kept running her out of work. We would get an apartment done, complete, and the next one wouldn't be ready yet. So the boss was like, hey, you're good, it's fine. I'll still pay you the same amount even though you're not working. So then her husband worked for this big construction company. And he said, hey, you should come work out there. So I went over there and talked to his boss at the construction place. They were building this huge building. And I went over there and said, I have no experience. I'm 15 years old. I'll just be a grunt. I'll do whatever you want me to do. You know, just looking for a job. You know, I can't work every day because I have another job. And the guy's like, that's cool. And he goes, we can always use more grunts. And he paid me $15 an hour. So, and I would go over there and I would show up about 6 in the morning. And I would usually work till about 2 o'clock. About noon or 2 o'clock. And I'd work over there, and then I would go back to my sister's place, work at the apartments in the afternoons, and then in the evenings I'd go work at Taco Bell. I just worked non-stop. It was crazy how much I worked that summer. I was a young guy, didn't really care, you know. And the thing was, it kind of wrecked all my plans because I was a 15-year-old guy living by myself in California. All I did is work. I only got like 4 hours of sleep a day, I think. But end of the summer came. I got paid out from everybody, and I had to leave a lot of money. So we ended up getting a flight from California. I can't remember where I flew out of, but I got a flight, and it was going to Chicago, and my mom was going to come and meet me in Chicago and pick me up. And the flight, for some reason, came to Dallas-Fort Worth here. 15 years old, I came down here, I had to get off of that plane, connect onto another plane, and that one would take me to Chicago. I got on the plane on California. There was this whole big issue because we got on a plane and there was this guy. He was like a surfer dude, you know, Mr. Surfer Dude himself. And he was just causing all kinds of problems. And he was harassing the stewardess and everything else. And he kept grabbing them in the butt when they'd walk by. And they kept hollering and screaming at him. And we were sitting out on the tarmac thing waiting for our spot to take off. And all this stuff was happening. And they kept threatening to turn around and kick him off. And the guy was completely drunk. And he was yelling that he wanted another drink, and they wouldn't give him another drink. And so that was the whole big issue. Finally, they got him all calmed down, and we were able to get out, got out into the runway, boom, took off. It was a real short flight. Just California to here. I mean, it was basically up and down. And we took off, and we were flying and flying and flying and flying. And I can't remember how long the flight was going to be. I think it was like, I don't know. I'm probably wrong here, but maybe like an hour and a half, whatever it was. And we were up there for hours upon hours, just flying around. And people started getting antsy and everything else. And finally, they came over to radio. And they said, attention everyone, we need everyone to fasten their seatbelts, buckle in. The stewardess are going to come through and they're going to go over crash procedure landings. And everybody's like, huh? And they said, we have been circling Dallas-Fort Worth Airport for hours. We were supposed to have landed hours a long time ago, but there has been a plane crash on the runway, on the tarmac down at Dallas-Fort Worth. And we've been up here circling, waiting for them to clean it up so that we could land. So everybody's kind of starting to freak out, everything else. Here I am, 15-year-old kid, all by myself. It was fine. I was okay. And with the stewardess going over all this stuff. And we're getting ready to come down, and all of a sudden the plane starts coming down. And there was a family that sat right behind me. And they were a black family. and they were all oversized people, let's say. They were big people. And let's call them big boned. They were big ones. And they were back there, and they were a little loud and hooting and hollering and stuff, the whole trip. And they kept grabbing my seat and talking to me and stuff. And I'm like, yep, talking back to them. And, we're having a good time. And they were a little bit rambunctious. But when they said that we were coming down for this landing and everything else, it was, they were not happy. And a couple of the women started crying and everything else. We're gonna die. Oh. And oh Jesus, save us. It was really, it was getting a little bit much. But we came down, and I was by a window. And as we were coming down in Dallas, we came down out of the clouds and came down, and Austin, I saw the runway, and sure enough, there was a plane sitting in the middle of the runway, and it was broke open in half. And there was this white stuff everywhere. Well, later on I learned it was foam, and they spray it on, when there's a plane crash, they spray it everywhere to make sure things don't blow up. I guess it deters the jet fuel from lighting on fire. So all this is all over the place. And there was other runways. I really don't know why we had to go on that certain runway right next to it, but that's where we came in. And we came in and everything else, and they made an announcement, okay, we're coming in for a hard landing. We need everybody to brace. I don't know what this truck is doing, slowing down so much. He just like slammed on the brakes, and there's nobody in front of him. I'm gonna try to jump out around. I don't know if I'm supposed to be in this lane or not, but that was pretty ridiculous. But now he's gonna go. I don't know what his deal was. He slowed way down to like 30 miles an hour. Just all of a sudden, there's nobody in front of him though. Now we're trying to get past him. Now he's speeding up. But anyhow, we came down and we landed, and it was on like a runway right next to where that plane was. And as soon as we came down and touched in there, planes are going 150, whatever, 200 mile, whatever they are when they land and they touch down. We came down and touched in, and it was a good landing. It was a little bit rough, and we came in, and what I learned is he tried to land way on the end of the runway. He came in a little bit hot, and he tried to land way on the end of the runway so that he could bleed off speed. And we came down and we were going, I don't know, probably 100 or whatever we were going. And we kind of came up to the area where that foam had gotten sprayed around, and some of that was on our runway. Well, he's hitting brakes and sliding and brakes and stuff, and all of a sudden the whole airplane just starts fishtailing all over the place. And we're going, probably 100 miles an hour at this time in this big, huge it was a double deck, and upstairs and downstairs. This thing is fishtailing going down the runway. Man, it was quite exhilarating. It was a ride. But them women behind me, I thought they were going to break my seat. They were just grabbing my seat and just screaming bloody murder. Just going nuts in my seat. Oh, we're going to die. And just going on and on, just screaming. And we finally came to a stop. They finally got it stopped. Pilot came over to loudspeaker, said, we are stopped. We are not allowed to move the airplane. They're going to bring a bus out here. We're going to take you guys off, and we'll transport you to the terminal. So just hang tight and everything else. And those women are back there, thank Jesus, thank Jesus. I mean, it was so funny. It was a very tense moment and everything else, but those women back there, I mean, they made it so funny. It was crazy. But we all stood up, and when we stood up, the one guy said something to his wife, and she looked at me and she goes, "I didn't hurt you, did I?" And I said, no. I said, "You shook me up a little bit," but I said, "We're all good." She grabbed me, tears are just flying on her cheek. She just grabbed me and just hugged me and just smothered me. And just sat there hugging me, "We made it," and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And, we all shook hands and, said our goodbyes and stuff. We went off into the other terminal. And they told us where to go and to check on because they shut down all the flights. So our next flight was canceled. And we went in there and I stood in line and everything else and got up to the ticket place and got up there and, said I was on this flight. I need to get to Chicago. And they were like, "Well, you can do this or do that, go fly here, do this." I was like, "Lady, I'm 15 years old. I don't know I'm not a worldwide traveler on airplanes. I don't know what's going on. I just need the easiest route to Chicago." And she said, "Well, you can sit in and we're hoping that by about 11 tonight, maybe midnight, we're going to be able to put together a plane for whoever doesn't want to. They can wait here." And because they were transferring people to other airports, and you can wait here, and we're hoping to have the runways open again, and we can get you a flight going to Chicago. So it sounds like a plan to me. So the thing is, this was before cell phones, and I called home to let my mother know what was going on because she was picking me up. And I called home, and she already had left, and she was gonna go do some things and stuff like this, so she left early. And my dad wasn't home or nothing, so the phone just rang, and nobody ever answered it. So I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I sat there and waited and everything, and hung out at the airport. Just checked out Dallas Fort Worth like all day long. I was there. And later that night, sure enough, I was sitting there. I kept telling them where I was gonna be in case they found us plane and stuff. And finally, they came and got me and said, "Hey, we got a plane for you. We're gonna be loading up." It was, I don't know, midnight or something like this at this gate. And I said, "Okay." So I went over to that gate and got on, checked in, told them who it was. We didn't have tickets or nothing. They just put together this plane just to get us, whoever stuck around, just to get us to Chicago. And I go in and I board this airplane, and I said, "Well, there's no tickets or nothing." I said, "What seat am I supposed to?" She goes, "You can sit any place you want to." And it was a huge double-deck plane. I mean, this thing was big. It had like seats in the middle that were like 5 or 6 wide, and then double road, and then it had like 2 or 3 seats by each one. It was a huge plane. And we went in, and she goes, "You can sit wherever you want, just pick a spot." And so I went up there, and I was all tired and everything else, and I went up there and I looked, and there was like a few people here, there, all scattered on. And I picked a spot where there was gonna be like 5 or 6 seats. I kind of threw my stuff across them, and I was hoping nobody would sit by me, because then I was thinking I could flip the armrest up and lay down and go to sleep. And I'm sitting there, and I heard them coming. And I looked, sure enough, here comes that black family that was on the first plane. They come in there, those 2 women, they saw me. Hey! They come running right to me. And they started to sit next to me, and I said, "Hey," I said, "it's great to see you again." I says, "But would you mind, like, if I move back a row?" I said, "I'm not trying to be rude." I says, "But I'm planning on laying out and going to sleep." And, "Oh, yeah. So I moved to a different row right behind, and we sat there and talked and everything else. Turns out, I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could. But this whole family owned a fried chicken place in Chicago. And they owned this fried chicken place in Chicago, and they all had, I didn't really even notice it, but they all had the same shirt on with the name of their chicken place on the rest of their shirt. And they were just going on and on. "When we get to Chicago, you're coming over by us and we're gonna feed you right, and everything else going on and on. I'm like, I says, tell you the truth, I says, my mom is supposed to be there. I have not been able to get a hold of her. I don't know if I'll have a ride when I get there. And she goes, we are gonna take care of you and everything else. And we had a good time. I tried to sleep. I think I slept for a little while, but they kept me awake. And well, it was fun. We got back to Chicago. We come in there, and here the plane came in, and there was my mother waiting for me. Right when the plane came in and came off, she was right there. She told them people I wanted to see my son, and what happened is she went on down to Chicago, knew nothing of what was going on, and she went down to the airport and got down there hours early. And she thought she was going to hang out and have dinner or whatever waiting for me. And she went down there and checked in and looked at the boards or whatever and looked for my flight. Canceled. She thought, what? Well, then she went up and she talked to some lady and said, hey, my son's flight is canceled. I'm picking him up and it's canceled. What's going on here? And the lady click. Oh, there was a plane crash in Dallas, Fort Worth. What? She's like freaking out. She thought it was my plane. And she was all messed up and just, emotional. And she's yelling at the lady. And the lady had no clue if it was my plane or another plane. Who knows who she was. She was probably not the brightest bulb. But it took her hours and screaming at people and everything else to finally figure out it wasn't my flight. It was a different flight, that we did make it down safe, but they canceled all the other planes. And they were trying to work on a flight to get me to Chicago. And she's like, he's never flown really before. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's probably going to get lost there. And she was all freaking out. And then when they said they had a plane coming and they told her what flight, what gate was going to be coming, they couldn't tell her if I was on the plane. She's like, can't you punch it in your computer and tell me if he's actually on the plane, if he made it on a plane? They said no, there was no tickets issued or nothing. We don't know really, to tell you the truth, if he's on the plane or not. And she was just beside herself. And we came in there, we got off the plane, and when I came walking out the plane, she just screamed and came running at me and grabbed me and hugged me and, you're alive. And I'm like, yeah, I made her. And then that other family came walking off the plane right behind, and they started talking to my mom, and we've been taking care of him and everything else. I was like, I don't know what they've been taking care of me. They basically just been keeping me awake. And then they tried to get us to come over to their house, and my mom was like, I have been up all day long, and this was like 2 or 3 in the morning. She's like, we've got to head back. So they gave us some little cards for their restaurant. Said, next time you come down to Chicago, you come by us. It was funny. But then we went on home, and we got up. It was the next day when the sun was rising. We actually pulled into the house, and because I always remember it, because we came down it's called Vista Drive on the way to our house. And we came down Vista Drive, and there's a gravel pit, and it was the most picturesque scene. The sun was just coming up, and there was this gravel pit mountain little hill just off the side of the road, and this big buck, this big deer, it was a buck, had a big rack and everything else, was standing on top of that gravel pit, on top of that hill, and the sun was coming up right behind it. It was the most beautiful. If I would have had a camera or something, boy, that would have been the perfect picture. It was just awesome. I've always remembered that picture in my head. But that was my Dallas-Fort Worth airport adventure. It was fun. And then I came home and I bought a car with all my money. And I crashed it and totaled it 2 weeks later. I seriously did. I was in the hospital, critical condition. Broke almost every bone in my body. So, there you go. So, we're heading out. We're on 635, I believe this still is. I really can never keep track of these highways around here. I'm just following Aaron, to tell you the truth. I get confused in Dallas here. And we're 7 miles away from 30. And we'll jump on 30 and take off. And I'm kind of hungry a little bit. I really haven't eaten anything all day. I might just give that barbecue place one more chance and just go buy a sandwich instead of spending $20. Because I don't want a big thing. I'm just kind of hungry. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I think I might just swing in there and give them another shot. Because I know John loves it. And it probably bothered him that I said I didn't like it very much. So we might just do that. So I hope everyone out there is having themselves a great day, a great night, as you watch this here video. And if you are not, well, we certainly could change that and just try it all over again tomorrow. Guys, thanks for watching. And I'll catch you later.